everybody, you're now listening to Cup of Queens with Paige and Saray. Today we have Kelsey Joy Buell, the founder of the Burnout Prevention. Not only is Kelsey a speaker and consultant, but she is filled with great business and career advice for those looking to live a more fulfilled work life.
Kelsey has spoken at over 200 events, giving advice and tips on networking skills, communication strategies, and behavioral assessments. Kelsey shares ideas on how to work through company culture, how to identify your career strengths, and how to quiet the voice inside your head telling you you can't.
So grab your cup and enjoy! Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for being on Cup of Queens. So today we have Kelsey Buell, who is a speaker and consultant and also the founder of the Burnout Prevention. So tell us about yourself. Give us a little bit of background, how you got started.
So I like to start with, I was born in Niceville, Florida, and my middle name is Joy, so I'm a little bit predispositioned to be high energy and positive. So I haven't even had more than a couple sips of this wine already, so it's not the wine talking if I come across as
it's just
high energy.
You.
It's just we
love that on here.
But no, so my background's in recruiting. That's what I would say I spent the majority of my career in, and in recruiting, you are listening to anywhere from could be 2 to 10 people a day talk about how much they don't enjoy their jobs.
Really?
So during that time period, I was even surprised by how many people that were in higher up positions, which I would look at and think, man, they must be living the dream, would be willing to sit down and have an interview conversation with me. And so through that experience of being a recruiter, it developed this passion for me for helping people love their jobs a little bit more. And that's primarily the foundation of everything I do now is anywhere from helping people prevent burnout to helping companies retain their talent and keep their employees happy and engaged at their organization, since I know how many people out there don't find fulfillment in their jobs.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is really cool though. I mean, that is such a big part of people's lives. And it's cool that you can kind of help be that navigator. And so how much experience, what kind of brought you to this? Because you must have had some experiences that really led you to this direction.
Yeah. Well, I think so when I was in that recruiter role, I think I had this inkling of I would love to go off on my own someday, but I don't know exactly what I would do. And during that time, I used a lot of different behavioral assessments. And so I was fascinated by the fact that the more of these assessments you take, the more you can understand yourself and how you're wired. And so for me, it was really, it started off by just in the back of my mind having this push. And then truthfully, I went through a couple of different jobs with different leaders and bosses and had great experiences, but I found myself at this point where I never wanted to have to be told no. And what I mean by that is no matter where you take life and what your role is, if you're working for someone else, there are going to be times when you're told, no, you can't do that. And so I was in this position where I told myself, I want to be able to say, yes, I can to really anything. And so that's kind of, I guess, the mindset journey that maybe I went through.
Yeah.
And then truthfully, people are everything. And so I just have had the right connections in my life that have made it possible. Right when I went off on my own, I worked part-time for an organization called Donor Doc that there's a guy there, his name is Matt, and he just believed in me. And so I was able to quit my full-time job and have kind of a base, if you will, and be able to kind of play and figure out what I wanted to do on top of that. And so I did that for 6 months, and that gave me a chance to have a little bit of stability while I built other things.
Wow.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
And it takes, I think connections are so great. And it's so funny. I don't know. People always talk about don't be afraid to talk to the person in the grocery store or here or there. And it truly does affect every aspect of your life, the connections that you have.
Yep.
That is so awesome.
Well, and this is, I don't know, I hate to even talk about this yet, but one of these ideas that I keep having rolling through my head, which I don't know what I'm going to do with but it's called your because of journey.
Okay.
Because of this or because of that, I am where I am today. And it's funny when you think about the people that you've run into in your life, it's like, because of that person, I am now doing this. And because of that person, then I did this. And it's just really interesting when you look back at your journey of people and how it's because of your connections that you get to where you are.
Yeah.
And so you have to pause and be grateful for all the people that have gotten you there along the way.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, burnout, how do you know if you are feeling burnout or if it's just not the right fit? Do you ever have those conversations with clients?
Yeah. So I think that there's a few important things to consider. One is that we all go through phases of going towards burnout or away from burnout. So I call it a continuum. So first, what happens is anytime you start a new job, I say the honeymoon period is about the first 90 days.
Okay.
So when you start a new job, being very mindful of what happens on day 91. Because usually on day 91, that's where you're settled in. You really understand kind of the dynamics of who you're working with. And so when you look at what happens on day 91, it's really important as an individual to kind of get ready to get to that point and know that the honeymoon phase will wear off, because just being aware of it is the first step. The other thing I would say is that I always caution people that the grass isn't always greener.
Sure.
Because even if you're feeling exhausted or burned out, I think you need to have some sort of gut check around, but is this a place that cares about me? You know, there's a lot of different factors. I've often talked about the 4 forces of engagement. So job fit, manager relationship, team dynamics, and then culture or organization. So that last one's kind of more like your environment. And what I often find for people happens is if 2 out of the 4 are off, they'll usually stick around. It's the moment that 3 out of the 4 are off that they're out the door. So recognizing if any of those factors are in misalignment, especially the first one, if job fit is a struggle, there might be a reason to have some more conversations with a team member or manager around how can I incorporate more things that I love into my role? And then that can allow you to re-engage in what you're doing. But some people are truly okay, even if they don't love their job, if they have an awesome manager and great team and the organizational culture is phenomenal, they'll stick around.
That's enough.
Yeah. And so I think there isn't a perfect formula for you, but I think it's more of just being aware of, hey, what areas am I in misalignment? And the companies that are keeping their employees longer are the companies that are willing to have the tough conversations and be open and transparent with their employees around how are things going, what's going well, what's not going so well. And especially in between one-on-one, a manager to an employee relationship, that is the number one reason why people leave their jobs is because they don't connect with their manager. And so I think right off the bat, just really building that good, strong relationship with your direct report. If you're managing someone else or if you're being managed, that relationship is going to be the most critical relationship that you have on your team.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, that's who you're going to every day. So do you have tips for both ends of, that relationship, not only for listeners of ours who are employed, but maybe listeners of ours who are that manager? How can that relationship be better established?
Yeah. Well, one activity that I've found, and this can be done in teams or just between a manager and their direct report, is you draw kind of a chart and you say, here are the things that I love, love, love about my role. Here are the things that I like. Okay. Here are the things I don't like as much. And then here are the things that are really, really tough for me about your role. So just even having a one-on-one conversation with your manager around love, like, don't like, and highly dislike, and putting those into quadrants and then having a more open-ended conversation, because usually where the tension comes from, I find, is this pressure of you should be, I think we talked about this earlier, like you should do this or you should do that. I used to have a manager all the time that, great individual, but they would tell me, hey, you're so good at that. Let's have you do more of that.
Sure.
And I would sit there and want to pull my hair out because I was only doing a good job because I care about my work, but they started to have me do more of things that I absolutely despise because they thought that I enjoyed it. And there wasn't, I didn't feel like there was an environment created where I could actually have an open conversation like, I don't know if that's going to be the best way to use my skills.
Yeah.
So oftentimes managers just they assume that they know what their employees are good at without having a conversation of what they really are driven by and what they really enjoy.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense.
Sometimes people are just really willing to stretch on an ongoing basis for a long period of time. But what I find is that if you have to constantly, day in and day out, stretch, eventually you're going to have a breakdown.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're a people person, but you're having to sit in a back corner with your door shut and work on Excel spreadsheets all day, you will eventually go insane.
Yeah. So I know on your website you even talked a little bit about, or you have some more information on individual coaching sessions. So can you tell us a little bit about that, what that looks like, and maybe some of the experiences you've had?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a free, I call it Reignite Your Engagement call.
Oh, I love that.
So a one-on-one call where people can connect with me. And truthfully, what our goal is so I do some one-on-ones, but it's a little bit more limited. So ultimately, we're creating groups. So right now, we just launched 2 peer advisory groups. One is for women that are right out of college, and one is for women that are kind of that middle-level manager. And so it's actually group coaching.
Cool.
And we do have one-on-ones that go along with that. And so what we'll do is during our group coaching time, we have a couple hours together, we set goals, and then we talk about challenges. And so a challenge might be, I need help. We have an HR manager who's in my group, and she just said, I really need to recruit more. I really need more candidates. So we might stop and just brainstorm some ideas of how she could get their company's face out more. And so we go around and each person talks about a short-term challenge, and then we'll have guest speakers come in. And then typically what we'll do is if there's something that we can't get to in that group setting for each individual woman, we'll dive a little bit deeper into that challenge when we meet one-on-one.
Cool.
Sure. Very cool.
It's so much fun. And for me, I'll just be the first one to say, I don't have all the answers. And so what's really fun is just being that sounding board for these women and giving them a chance to share their challenges with the other women in the room.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've continued to get as feedback from my programs is, Kelsey, I realized I was not alone.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so great.
And that to me, that is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
On that side of things, because it's just like, if I can help one woman have more confidence and realize that the challenges she's having are no different than anyone else's, that confidence boost is just it's a joy for me to experience.
And we're so much stronger together.
Totally.
I mean, we all have challenges, we all have struggles.
Yep.
So when you talk about it and normalize it in a sense, it makes it so much less scary. So that's great.
Absolutely.
And I would bet within those sessions, you have heard some really great success stories of, individuals that you've maybe worked with or have done some programs with you. Can you tell us about an example that maybe it can help kind of give our listeners an idea of what that process of working, with you would look like?
Yeah. Well, one of the things we do is breakthrough coaching.
Okay.
And so a specific person that I can think of, we sat down and they had all this energy pent up, and I could tell that they had all these goals and dreams and ideas. But what I did was help them put them onto paper.
Sure.
And so we take this time where they talk. I just let them talk for a long period of time. And after going through that process, they said, I have so much more clarity on what I want to accomplish. And I actually feel like I know the step-by-step of how to do it. And so I think that's what they were missing as well, was just having someone to be able to say, when you think about preventing burnout, half the battle is we move so fast and we're in this whirlwind of chaos that we don't take time to step outside of our chaos and actually make a plan.
Yeah.
And so helping equip a woman like this with a plan, and then from there you begin with the end in mind. You time block, and so we work on how to set up your schedule. When are you going to fit these things in? And I think it just, having that plan alleviated a lot of the stress and challenges that she was going through. So that was really, really fun for me to experience as well.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. I want to go back. I know you mentioned just a little bit ago, sounding board. And that's something that we talked about in a couple of our episodes ago with Shannon. And she, you know, talked about the importance of it and how big of a difference it's made. So do you find that for yourself too, as far as having your own sounding board? Is that helpful?
Absolutely. So once someone told me I could talk to a brick wall for hours because I was embarrassed, but it was fine, whatever. But I love to talk things through out loud. So that's part of my profile is actually I come up with my best ideas when I have a chance to talk them through.
Yeah.
Some people are different. Some people prefer to think them through. I need to talk them through. And it's really interesting because when I went off on my own, I spent the first, I would say, 8 months really pretty much fully on my own. I had a business partner. We would meet once a week, but we didn't have a ton of communication in between there. And so what was really interesting is in the spring, I re-engaged with this girl named Grace, who I think I mentioned earlier, and she has been part of my team now since, I want to say, March. And not only having someone to talk through ideas with, but also the accountability.
Yes.
Oh, totally.
When you say something out loud, especially if you say you're going to do something or if you make a plan and you talk it through, it adds a whole additional layer of accountability. And so I find that in the last 8 months or however many months I've had her working with me, I have been so much more productive and I've gotten so much more done and actually taken more risks simply because I had a sounding board and because she's very helpful and amazing.
Yeah.
But having the sounding board has helped me get out of my comfort zone more.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think that is so true. Like, I think of Paige and I. I mean, if we were to do this, you know, Cup of Queens on our own, there's so many things that we would not do. But because we have each other, we're like, okay, you're going to do this. Or Paige will text me and be like, hey, remember you're doing this. I'm like, oh yeah, I am. I have to do it. I can't let Paige down. And so I love that you say that because I think that that's such an underlooked value that, I mean, you can get through so many people, whether it's your parents, your friend, a stranger, a mentor, or someone like you to just kind of, you know, keep yourself accountable.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and just having someone to talk through the challenging things too. Especially when things aren't going well. I mean, it's great to celebrate together, but then if you're having a tough situation come up and you just need someone to vent to even and just get it out, having someone that is in your world, because let's face it, I have an incredible husband, but he doesn't, when I come home, it's better if I don't always make him my scapegoat. And so it's nice to have someone we're both in the business, someone that I can really talk to about these things that she fully understands.
Totally.
Yeah.
So someone who's like a designated vent to this person. Yeah. Yes. I think that's such a good point. You mention on your website people strategy using predictive index.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Paige and I both were reading that and we're like, what is this? Yeah. This sounds very cool.
So cool.
Yes, so you guys can totally take it complimentary. It's a 5-minute, I should even say probably even 4-minute assessment. It's a quick tool, and it's actually a worldwide organization that myself and Trent, the guy that I mentioned earlier, he actually partnered with Predictive Index, and what we decided was my passion is training and development. He has a lot of organization that he's already working with. So what worked out really well for our partnership is I came up alongside of him and I do the trainings.
Sure.
So it's a talent strategy tool that measures how you show up at work. And so it measures communication style. It measures what you need in your environment. It's, there's a lot of other assessments out there that you've probably heard of, but maybe just haven't heard of this one. So there's like Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finder. There's a lot of assessments out there. The thing that I like about this one in particular, though, is that it's very sticky for companies. So there's a lot of action items that come with things.
Like what? Give an example.
Yeah. Okay. So this would be the fun part. So you guys could each take it and we can actually pull a relationship guide.
Oh, cool.
And it would tell us, it would tell us how you would best support each other. It would also give cautions and then some tips. So that's just one fun thing that it does, but it also, there's a personal development chart So within each of, there's 4 different things that you'll find out about yourself through it. And again, it only takes 4 minutes. It's like super quick to take, and it'll actually give you tips on how to grow and lead. And then the last thing that is fascinating to me is from a recruiting standpoint, we actually create job targets.
Oh,
and
very cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for example, we might create a job target for a bank teller.
Okay.
But let's say that we wanted the bank teller to eventually move up into the manager of the bank teller position. We might look for a different type of personality or type of drives.
Sure.
For even though they're going into an entry level position, we might actually strategically hire someone that would be better suited for the job target for the manager role, knowing that that's where we would want to grow them.
Interesting.
So we
That's
do a
really
lot of
cool.
a lot of job mapping, and the way that I think of it is to identify, would the candidate get to work and feel like they're swimming with the current, so it's easy, it's free flowing, or would they get to work in that job and feel like they're swimming against the current and it's painful, and that's when the people leave.
Wow.
Interesting.
Okay, we have to do this.
Yes, I'm
That
so
sounds
excited.
so fun.
Take it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm gonna.
complimentary, no strings attached. Seriously,
Okay. We'll share our results
Yes.
on
Yes.
social.
yes.
So fun, and we'll share it too so everybody can take it.
Yes.
Share the link.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That would be awesome.
So how do you think, I know naturally now in the last year, even 2 years, I feel like turnover has been a real thing, even now more than ever. So why do you think employers experience that?
That's a good question.
And
well,
nobody really knows, but
we are in the midst of, they're actually calling it the Great Resignation.
Oh,
Oofta.
that is a terrifying way to
Yeah.
explain it, but that is kind of what it is.
Yep. So
Yeah.
employers are in trouble.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so it's really scary, but really there's a lot of reasons why people leave. I mean, there might be people that they truly just they left the workforce during the pandemic, and then they decided that they didn't want to go back to work.
Sure.
And that's been common, and we call it I'm trying to remember, there's a word for it. It's the world that we live in. I mean, it's easy to pick up Uber or to make side money in different ways. So getting gigs versus
Yeah.
an actual job
Sure.
is a more common thing.
Really?
So you think of, I use Uber as an example because it's pretty easy to sign up and be working
Yeah.
for Uber, but I think there are a lot more jobs like that people can fit around their lifestyle. So a lot of people are trying to have more lifestyle jobs. But ultimately, I feel the other thing that I've heard, and I don't really have any full statistics to back this up, but that now that we're coming out of the pandemic, there were a lot of people that were holding on to their jobs through the pandemic because they wanted to be safe and play it safe. And they're like, at least I have a job.
Right.
Right? Because a lot of companies laid off employees. But now that there are so many job opportunities out there, now that we're coming out, there's been an increase, an influx of people that are finally like, okay, now I can make the change.
Interesting.
So
wow,
it's
they're like seeing that window.
Yeah.
almost.
It's that window of, okay, I'm safe now. Like we got through the worst of it, we hope. And now I can make that change. And ultimately, I mean, we're seeing it in a lot of these high volume positions that were impacted directly by the pandemic. I think, I think of like mortgage officers, for example, or my husband works at the title company, and thankfully they haven't had too many issues, but I think a lot of the jobs that were impacted with a higher volume, those people are so burned out, and they're like, get me out of here. I can't do it anymore. Yeah. So just, the whole topic of turnover is really interesting. I mean, it is a job seekers market.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves, right? It's
Sure.
It is a job seekers market. And so companies are hurting for help. And I also think one of the important things to bring up is hybrid. How that can play a huge factor. I'm trying to think if I can enunciate this or say this in the right way, but I know that there's I heard a guy, he was speaking on hybrid work, and he was talking about relocation packages. And he was this guy was asking this company leader, so do you have relocation packages? And he's like, well, of course, yeah, we'll pay for someone to move here. And he's like, no, I mean, would you pay for your employee to move to Utah because they could work remote and they just want to live in Utah and they love to hike?
What?
So
That's
amazing. Like,
oh my goodness.
thinking about the future of work. And because there's this whole new view on even hybrid opportunities, people are going to be probably trying to seek out jobs where they can just work remote.
Have that freedom and flexibility to
and still
work
do
around
what
their
they
lifestyle.
like. Yeah, exactly.
So
Interesting. Yeah. I haven't heard that yet, but I'm sure it's coming, more and more.
Yeah.
the other thing that I've talked to a couple of business leaders that they've struggled with lately is now that people are going back into the office and whatnot, they're trying to come up with additional ways to have team building or to engage their employees.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of employers are, I think people are getting so much more used to staying home more that they'll say, oh, we're going to send our employees on a trip. And employees will be like, no, thank you. I'd rather have a bonus.
Wow.
And so there's this split between people that love that kind of thing, right? Yeah. They want that reward.
Like, I want the trip.
I know.
Totally, same.
But then there's this split, and some people are like, why would you waste company money on that? You know, I just want a bonus. Give me a bonus. And so it's really interesting how, for the first time ever in history, we have 5 generations in the workplace.
Okay, you should talk about that because that is very interesting.
That's fascinating to me too. So
what are the differences between the generations that you see within those 5?
I think, so I can't speak very well to each generation independently,
okay.
But I know that the older generation, even when it comes to burnout, I've had a couple that have said burnout isn't a real thing.
Yes, I totally can see that.
Yeah.
And they think, nope, you go to work, you get your work done, you just do your job, and you know, you shouldn't, like, burnout is not an actual thing.
You stick with your job for 30, 40 years, pretty much your entire career, and whether you like it or not.
So I should, like, take the name off. I have an email. It's just, it's insane. And it wasn't, it was just, I was very disappointed because it was like, nope, you just get to work, you work hard. And I thought this poor leader is probably driving their employees into the ground.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if you're closed-minded to what people are feeling. Yeah.
And I think the younger generation, I mean, they want to see that the company gives back to the community and cares about their employees and what are the benefits, not just monetary benefits, but just what are all the benefits that come with working at this company. So I think there's a lot more about impact in the younger generation. So that's my quick summary.
Yes, the really high level differences.
The very extreme.
Yeah.
We want to love our job and we want to love our lives. I think that's a huge thing is we're a lot more about how can I do a job that I enjoy, but also build a life that I love.
Yes.
And I don't think that older generation even thought about that.
Right.
And they were just at a different point in history with they maybe didn't have the opportunity to think like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, it's, I'm sure, very difficult to navigate for, connecting, bridging two very different generations together, but that's how things progress. And that's how people find to love their job more through different things like this.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So how do you yourself, you're so busy doing 1,000,001 things during the day. How do you keep yourself motivated and not feel tired or burnt out?
Oh, it's a great question. Well, I don't always do a great job. I'll start off by saying that I don't have the magic bullet solution for that. I think what I've started to do a little bit more is cut myself some slack. There's this really happy medium balance between wanting to produce excellent results and excellent work, but also giving yourself time to relax and breathe. One of the things that I notice with myself is that there's always the next thing, right? There's always that next thing that's going to stress me out.
Yeah.
And I find myself often talking about, I think I said it when I came in here, if I just get through this week, I'll be so much happier. If I just get through this week, or if I just get through October, if I just get through November. But I think that what I've learned to do is when I hear myself saying that, pause and remind myself that that's not a valid thing to think, because then you're just always in this spiral, always stressed about the next thing. And so I try to remind myself to enjoy and have fun along the way, and remember to hang out with my friends on a Friday night and not just feel like I have to get some work done or haven't cleaned the house. I try to allow myself those breaks. And I am blessed with a schedule where if I want to do a workout at 10:30 in the morning, I set my own schedule. And if I let myself, I will work all day and into the night. But I think the older you get, and I know I'm married, but I don't have kids yet. I know even once I get to that point in life, I'm really going to have to fit things into a smaller window. And so I think whatever phase of life you're in, being okay sometimes with 80% instead of 100%, and knowing that there always will be that next thing. So reminding yourself to pause and enjoy the moment.
I love that. That is something I needed to hear because that's my biggest struggle. I'm constantly trying to just enjoy where I am and not get stressed out about the next thing or worry about tomorrow. And so I think that's really great to hear, because I think we're all like that. We all get stressed out, but that's good. And
I have to add this little fun thing. So in one of our programs, we talked about the crazy woman in your attic. How we all have a crazy woman that lives in our attic. Okay. And the first thing that you have to do is recognize that she's crazy. and so we actually make everyone name her.
Oh, I love this.
This is funny.
So you could just call her the B word if that's what if that's what you want.
Yeah.
But the crazy woman in your attic, she creeps in and tells you you're not good enough, you're not working hard enough, you're not doing enough. After this podcast, she'll probably creep in and say, oh, I messed up on that one question, or I said that line wrong. What I meant to say was this. That's where mine will show up. Is after I do things like this. And so start to pay attention to your
crazy woman in the attic.
I'm gonna, give her a name.
But I love that. Well, how do you deal with the crazy woman in the attic? Because everyone has that. And I do think there are some people who are very good at ignoring that. And I know there are some people who just get torn down and eaten alive by it. So how have you found to handle your crazy woman in the attic, and how have you helped maybe people work through those conversations?
So it's not easy. I'll start with that. I've noticed that a lot of it hinges on how I start my day.
Really?
If I jump into my day and I don't take any time at the beginning of the day to maybe read a devotion or a positive message or a motivational quote, or even write down some affirmations, if I don't start my day in a positive way, she's way more prevalent. So I think starting your day with whatever that routine is for you, starting your day with a little self-love, I think has been really, really helpful. I'm trying to think. There was another thing that I thought of, and here now it's escaping me. But really, I think, too, just recognizing that, there's the logical side of your brain, and then there's the emotional side. So when you start letting the emotion creep in, that's when she starts to talk the most. So it's almost like pausing, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is it valid for me to feel this way? Should I truly be thinking this? Because I think oftentimes we forget to pause and just question why we're even thinking what we're thinking. And I guess the last thing I would say is you would never talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself. You've probably heard of that before.
True.
But yeah, it's really hard to control your thoughts, but I think just reminding yourself to talk to yourself as if you were talking to a friend.
I love that.
We all need to remember that. Yeah, for sure. So I know you mentioned this briefly a little bit, but self-care, what are some of your favorite ways to practice self-care and different motivational tactics?
Well, I am big into working out. So I always find it depends on, I think movement is actually proven to be the number one prevention or way to prevent burnout.
I believe it.
I think so too.
We've talked about that definitely on this, where It's so hard to like get your butt moving, but when you do, you keep moving.
You keep
like,
going.
with just your brain and like with your attitude.
Totally.
Yep. So if you can, even if it's a walk, I love listening to podcasts. So
Love
that's
it.
Love to hear it. It's funny. It's a newer thing for me, but podcasts, audiobooks, listening to music. I love reading, but I'm very much a sporadic reader.
Sure.
I'll do really well for a couple weeks and then I'll take a break. But yeah, I would say back to the movement. It's funny because, so I don't have the bike, but I have the Peloton tread.
Sure.
And those instructors are so inspiring. They always say
so
quotes
good.
and stuff. And so if you can find whatever it is, whatever movement it is that you love, I always pick, there's a couple instructors that they're my go-tos because I always have my best thoughts.
Yeah.
When I'm working out too.
Okay, tell us your instructors.
I want to know.
There's probably some Pelotoners out there, so we want to know.
And we both have the bike.
I love Jess Sims. I don't know if she does bike though. She might do one or two. Jessica Sims, Rebecca Kennedy. I do love, is it Allie?
Allie Love?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
She's awesome.
So almost all of them will throw in motivational quotes.
Love that.
So I love finding ways to kind of, I guess, dovetail, I'm working out, but I'm also getting motivation.
Yeah.
So
2 in
anytime
1.
you can
It's a 2 for 1.
Yes. So anyway, so I think movement, I find the more I can incorporate, even if it's just 15 minutes, honestly, in my day, it makes a huge difference.
And that's even something you could do to start your day. Going back to what you were talking about before, is if you start your day with something for yourself, that crazy woman in the attic isn't maybe as loud. So that would be a 3-fer if you do there.
Yep, totally.
Tell us, okay, real quick, I want to know some of these podcasts or audiobooks that are some of your favorites.
Okay. Well, I'll start with audiobooks. So one that I've listened to on repeat, it's called Essentialism.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard of it?
Never.
No.
It's about the pursuit of less but better.
Ooh. I'm interested in this. Okay.
You have to listen to it. And so the guy's name is Greg, and I can't pronounce his last name properly, but it's like McCowan, something like that.
Something with an N.
MCKOEWN, something like that. But he has a British accent.
Ooh, I even like that.
So it's
cool.
very easy to listen to. So that one's top of mind for me right now. That one I always come back to.
Really?
Because again, it's just talking about the importance of cutting things out and only focusing on the essential.
Yes, I haven't heard of this particular Greg guy, but I've heard a couple of minimalism or just like the bare minimum conversations coming up recently, and I've been meaning to look more into it.
What is it called? Essentialism?
Essentialism.
Okay.
So it's about the art of, cutting out the non-essential and just focusing on what's essential. The other one that I'm like this close to being done with, I'm so close, is Super Attractor.
Okay, I've never heard of this either.
Okay, I haven't either.
Oh my gosh. So it actually has changed my mindset quite a bit.
Really?
I would say it's funny because
awesome.
now I just thought of it. I didn't think of it earlier, but it's, I'm trying to think of the name of the author, but yeah, Super Attractor. And it's even kind of what we were talking about with the crazy woman in your attic. It offers it's called the choose again method.
Okay.
So you have a negative thought, and then you recognize that it's a negative thought and you forgive it. Mm-hmm. And then you choose the next best feeling thought that you can think of.
Okay.
So it's just, it goes through all of these, again, very focused on mindset. And that's also where I got this concept of stop focusing on how successful you can be at something and instead focus on how much fun you can have with it. And the success will follow when you just focus on having fun.
Ugh.
I love that. That's really good.
So I'm sure that one is probably on audiobook too, but that one I'm actually physically reading, which is a big step for me.
Yeah, means it must be good.
Yeah,
if you're fitting it into your crazy week, it's got to be good. Mm-hmm. And that is one thing we're interested in, because I know Paige and I definitely relate to this, where it's like it's Sunday night and you're like just running through, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. This is coming up. I got to make sure I have this ready. So what do you do to not only prep for your week, but also being that you do have that flexibility within your career? how do you stay organized and on track?
Oh, that's a great question. So first and foremost, I'm not very good at staying organized. I'm going to be very honest.
I can't believe that.
So
me too.
Okay, so this is the funny. this is a perfect example. Okay, so old bosses used to hand me things that required a high level of detail.
Sure.
Because of exactly what you said, being surprised and thinking, you must be so organized.
Yeah.
I thrive at my best when I don't have to be organized.
Interesting.
And when I can just show up and, like I told you, I didn't really prep the questions.
Yeah.
Beforehand. That
Spoiler alert, she didn't prep.
Spoiler alert, I apologize. I glanced at them. But so what I find is I oftentimes, so I do a lot of time blocking.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing is looking at your week and blocking off, okay, if you want to get XYZ done, how are you going to do that? So the second thing I would say is I try not to work on the weekends as much as possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes on Sunday night, I'll write out my to-do list, but oftentimes I'll even wait until earlier Monday morning and write it out. And what I find is when I work too much over the weekend, I actually have less energy during that next week.
I get that.
I totally get that. Yep.
So I find that, and what is it in Europe where they do the shorter work weeks?
Yes.
So I've learned, and I haven't mastered this yet, but I'll let you know when I do. But I've learned to pay attention to my energy zones.
Okay.
So, for example, from probably 8 to 10 or 8 to 11 in the morning, I have really good energy.
Sure.
And then from about 11 to 3, I kind of have this slump. And then again, from maybe 3 to 5, I have kind of this final push, like trying to get it out. And then sometimes even from like 8 to 9, I'll be sitting on my couch and I'll be like, this is the perfect time for me to hash out some emails real quick and just get organized.
Yeah.
So what I'm constantly working towards is putting my higher energy tasks during those times in my life where I know I'll have more energy. So then you can go one step further and look at your week. On Mondays, I tend to have a little bit lower energy, but what I find I enjoy doing is having a lot of meetings that day, because even though I'm slightly lower energy, it doesn't take up a ton of brain capacity focusing in on a project, whereas Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I usually have even more energy to do more project-based thinking things.
Yeah. Sure.
And then Fridays, I'm tired and I just do a lot of housekeeping and organizing and stuff.
This
so
is
I don't know if that...
blowing my mind.
That's so cool.
So I'm telling you this, but I'm not always good at practicing it. But I think the more we can be in tune with ourselves and our schedules, we can actually get more done in less time.
Yes.
And when people say, oh, I worked 80 hours this week, I look at them and I think, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it's great that they wanted to put in that many hours, but I think, what could they be doing to be more efficient?
Right.
Is automatically where my mind goes.
Yeah.
And thinking about, why do we glorify
Yes.
overworking?
Yeah. When you can just be smarter with the hours that we have and get to enjoy the ones that aren't maybe dedicated to working.
Totally. Yeah.
That blocking thing, I've been told it a million times, but the way you just explained it with the energy focus kind of has like blown my mind. Like I'm going to do this tomorrow.
Let's do
Well, it makes you,
accountability.
like,
yes.
Let me know.
I will.
You
That's
have to think
incredible.
about it a little bit differently. It makes more sense that way.
I feel like my energy level is like spot on to what you were just saying. I'm like, Mondays are a little harder, but mornings and like late afternoons definitely feel better. So,
Yes.
gosh, that is just really great advice.
Oh, well, thank you.
It was
Like
good.
I said, I'm working towards it myself. So
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, we have a segment on the podcast. We a lot of times say, as you should, we really want to support people with whatever they're doing, but we all know that there's been times where you maybe shouldn't. And so we're wondering if you have a funny, embarrassing, or just memorable story of a time. And it doesn't even have to be related to, your business or what we've been talking about today, but a time where you're just like, man, I should not have done that.
But you learned a really great lesson.
Yeah.
So you still learned and grew from it.
Yeah.
But it was maybe a little embarrassing.
Okay, I have just the one.
Oh, okay. Look
This
at you.
is going to be really embarrassing, but I'll tell it anyways. Okay, so I, a couple years ago, went on an amazing trip to Australia with my husband.
Oh, amazing.
And on our way back, of course, it was in November, and we were told that there might be a snowstorm when we landed in Minneapolis. So we checked our bags, but we had these carry-ons with us, and we wanted to make sure that we packed some overnight clothes.
Yeah.
So that just in case we got stranded in Minneapolis, we had them there. So anyways, we get onto this really full plane, kind of shuffle down to our seats, sit down, and of course, my husband took the aisle seat, and I took the window seat, and we put our bag like across the aisle.
Yep.
So the second that we both sat down, my husband asked, "Do you have a pen?" And I said, "I don't have a pen right now, but there's one in my bag." So then I have to stand up and like shuffle past him again. I reach into the overhead compartment. Meanwhile, there's this lady sitting in the seat, and she's talking in French.
Okay.
And so I'm like, who is this lady? And I reaching in, trying to kind of shuffle around to grab this pen, and I grab a pen and I pull it out of my bag, and out from the bag flies a lacy pair of underwear and landed directly on her lap.
No.
Oh, no.
So it lands on her lap, and everyone around is dying laughing, and it was like, "Parlez-vous français?" or whatever, you know, she was talking into it.
No.
So her voice just completely elevated. You could tell she was panicked. I met her eyes, and I picked it up off of her lap and put it back in the bag, grabbed the pen, zipped up the bag, had to push it back in, go shuffle back past my husband, sit down and hand him this stupid pen. But I've told that story before, and the reason why is because we all should have a at least I didn't story.
Yes.
We should all have an at least I didn't story, because when something goes wrong, for me, it's, well, at least I didn't drop a pair of underwear on someone's lap today.
There you go.
There you go.
Things could be worse.
Always be worse. So
I love
it
that.
kind of tie into what we're talking about,
At
right?
least
Totally.
I didn't story. That is so true. You
Yeah.
can think of your time where you shouldn't have maybe packed
But
it
at
right
least I
at the
didn't
top
do
of the
that.
zipper.
Oh my gosh, it just came flying out. I'm like, I don't know what to
And
do.
of course, right on her lap. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't just like you
Like
grab
it
it
could have just fallen on
accidentally
the floor
Yeah.
or something,
Right.
you know, like right there.
Oh my gosh.
Right on her lap. So there you go.
Look at you. You just pulled that right out ready to go. That's amazing.
You really are good off the cuff.
Trying to be.
Just kidding.
This wine is very good.
Good. I'm glad.
Well, this one is going to also be a little off the cuff, but it's fun. So we always play a game towards the end of our episode, and it's nothing you have to prepare for. Fun. It's called the Burnout Prescription. And so we're going to give you a handful of different scenarios, and then you basically have to say what your recommendation would be for that. So kind of like a doctor. You're a doctor here.
Okay.
Dr. Kelsey's going to help us with
Oh, gosh.
these different scenarios.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Okay.
So the first one is prescription for a working single mom trying to juggle her career and family.
Oh, you are enough no matter what situation is going on. I think a single mom trying to juggle it all really needs to recognize that it's okay if you get to work and you don't have makeup on, or you know, there's so many different scenarios that I think happen for women in that situation. And so just recognizing that you are enough, I think
That's
would be-
perfect.
Absolutely. Write it every day. That could be a great way to start your morning.
There you go.
All right. Prescription for a business owner that is having a team conflict within their office.
So a team conflict.
Yes. So maybe employees or groups, whatever it might be.
So I think that activity that I mentioned earlier, getting together and having everyone map out their love, like, don't like, and then hate, and then you kind of make one giant group one
Cool.
and see where everyone falls.
Yeah.
And you can do it in different colors too. So each person could pick a different color, and you could see how you could see the commonalities of what people enjoy that are similar, but also, oh my gosh, if I don't like that but they do,
Why don't
that'll
we,
help us work together better. So that could be an idea.
I think that activity is so cool.
Yeah. I want to try it.
Love
That's
it.
really cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. Prescription for college student looking to get the most out of their college years.
Just have fun. I mean, don't take yourself too seriously. There's plenty of time to be a professional and work in the workforce. College only happens typically for 4, maybe 5 years of your life.
Yeah.
And so just remember it's okay to have fun and don't put too much pressure on yourself to,
It's good.
yeah.
Totally agree. All right. Prescription for someone who has been in the same career for 10 plus years and is losing their passion.
I just had a conversation like this recently with someone, and it's very hard. And I think the hardest thing that people in that position have is they keep thinking, but I want to end on this positive note, and I haven't done everything that I want to do here yet. And I think especially after that long time, it's easy to feel like you're going to leave. You almost feel this guilt that you'll leave the company in a bad position. But fortunately or unfortunately, we're all replaceable.
Yeah.
And so you have to do what's best for you and not worry about the opinions of the people at your company.
Yeah.
Retweet.
Retreat.
Just kidding. All right. Prescription for someone who has been in their career less than a year and is starting to doubt they chose the wrong path.
Well, I think I always say give everything at least a year. But if you're having doubts, that might be a good time to reimagine your role a little bit and think about, what could I do in my current role that would give me a little bit of energy? Is there a stretch project? Is there something different that I could maybe help a team member out with that might give me some of that energy back? So if it depends on the level of dissatisfaction that you have.
Yeah.
Sure.
If for some reason you have a conversation with a leader and you feel like the company is doing something unethical or it doesn't align with your values, then I would always say that's usually a signal that you need to find something else. But if it's just kind of this slight uncertainty, I would say look at other options. It doesn't hurt to see what's out there. But at the same time, typically it's better to be chasing a new opportunity versus running away from something.
Sure.
So I always say make sure you're running towards something that you're really excited about versus running away from a job. Because if you're running towards something, you're always going to end up more excited and happy about it versus if you're just unhappy and running away.
Yeah. That makes
really
sense.
true.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. This is our last one.
Okay.
Prescription for business owners who share a company and are running into disagreements.
Oh, gosh. That might be a tough one. Well, I know that transparency and honesty is always key. I think sharing the way you really feel is always going to be a gift to that other person, because if you hold it in how you feel, it could be much more detrimental. So I think open, honest conversations around this isn't working out. And sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just need to have the conversation. I know the people that I've worked with, if I felt a little tension, usually I'll bring it up. Unless, I like to try to give it a little bit of time to sit. And then sometimes I'll decide it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But if it still matters after a few days or after a week or whatever, then if you bring it up, bringing it out into the open almost always, I think, makes you feel better and have a closer relationship with that person.
Totally.
It's kind of like dating, right?
Yeah.
Your first fight, hopefully if you have your first fight, then you end up like making up and it's all good.
And working through that and feeling better about the next situation that presents itself.
Totally.
Yeah. That's a very good example.
Very good. Well, you killed it.
You absolutely killed it. Those are great descriptions.
Those were hard questions.
You did great.
You did
did not
really
prep
well.
you for those. So
It's okay.
Okay, so this question is fun. We try to ask this for all of our guests. So what does a queen mean to you?
Oh, gosh. Being a queen is just being confident in who you are and being willing to take charge of your own life, I think. Just being willing to design your life versus just let it come at you by default, if that makes sense.
I love that.
Total
Design your
sense.
life.
I love that.
So,
and that takes a lot of courage to do it. Sometimes it's easier to just, kind of
Go
let
with the
things
flow.
happen. But
Yeah.
confident, design your own life. I absolutely love that. And I know that so many people are going to want to connect with you and get in touch, because I feel like we always just touch the tip of the iceberg with our guests, and definitely with everything you talked about today. So where can people find you and connect and get involved?
well, I think one of the easiest ways is on LinkedIn, of course. So my name is Kelsey Joy Buell. And I think, will you include maybe my email?
We'll include everything.
Yeah. So include my email in the show notes, or however you do that, and that's fine to send me an email. But the other thing, I can't forget to share this. So this is all Grace's idea, but on January 14th, it's a Friday, we will be doing a goal setting summit.
Okay.
For women.
Cool. Amazing.
For just women.
Yeah.
It's actually, so it'll be hosted at Dakota Medical Foundation in town here. We have 75 seats, and so we're just starting to plan. So people need to get their tickets soon. And the goal will be to come out of that summit and that day with a plan for your 2022. And so it's going to be a really awesome day. We'll have some guest speakers, and we'll also have some time where we'll kind of do those mini peer advisory sessions too, where you can talk about some of the hurdles that you might encounter in trying to accomplish your goals. So
Very cool.
join us for that. I'll have to share that with you guys.
Please do. If we can be there, I want to go. That sounds so fun.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, we will.
Absolutely.
We will have that all included. And then,
Perfect.
so LinkedIn, email, anywhere else?
Social media,
Social.
yes. So we have, we actually have a social page both on Facebook and on Instagram for the Burnout Prevention Project. So it's a little bit long, but you can find us there as well.
Perfect. We'll link it all. Thank
Yep.
you so much.
Thank
This
you.
was so much fun.
Yeah.
Cheers.
So much fun. Cheers to not burning out.
And enjoying our lives.
Yes, exactly.
There you go.